And this brings with it unprecedented opportunities for economic growth, for upskilling, for human capital development, and let's be also honest, it also brings unprecedented opportunities to make a little bit of money, right? I can see one of our speakers, Baraka, is smiling. In Tanzania, we're looking to embrace this opportunity, and not just embrace it and say we'll do it, but really do it in a way that's tangible, and we want to be able to replicate it, right? We want to be able to scale. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. We're going to be talking about the pivotal role of digital transformation in enhancing our own economic competitiveness as individuals and what we can do for the country. We're going to look at some success stories of people that, like I said, are in the trenches doing the hard work. We're going to have a chat about what the current policy frameworks look like, where there are gaps, and where changes need to be made. And we're going to explore how we can get over those hurdles and challenges that we're experiencing. I expect this session to be fun, engaging, and at the end of it, you get to ask questions and we get to dig deeper. So one of our, I think, conveners for this session is IWTz2024. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but they are a young company doing some incredible things, going across borders too. They're a dynamic duo. You'll recognize them because they're both in blue suits today. So I'd like to invite the Chief Operating Officer of IWTz2024, Michael Malia, to do the opening remarks. Can we give him a round of applause?
Thank you very much, Catherine. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So on behalf of IWTz2024 and Funguo, who are the co-organizers of this session, I would like to welcome you to this, I'm going to call it a disruptive session because, as Catherine said, most of our speakers and panelists here are disruptors in, when it comes to innovation ecosystem in Tanzania. So in a nutshell, I will say, I understand that all of us in here are champions when it comes to digital transformation in Tanzania and when it comes to innovation as a whole. So I know we are all aligned and we are ready to discuss this particular topic. And just to put some, just to spice up this conversation, I was reading some papers, especially I came across this one by World Economic Forum, and they highlighted something that I liked a lot and I was compelled to share with you. So one of the things that they highlighted is there is no sector, there is no industry that will be able to run away from digital transformation. So it's either your sector will be transformed and you will be left behind if you are not, going with accordance to the transformations that are happening, or you will be forced to transform digitally. So actually that is what we are trying to do here today. We have NGOs in here, we have startups, we have people from Simba, from sports club. We have people from corporates. I've seen Vodacom in here. We have people from the government. All of us are discussing digital transformation in Tanzania. Why? This is because of it. This is because we've reached the point where we can no longer say we can do without digital technologies. So I would love to welcome you all. I know you will have a lot that you will want to share. You are welcome to ask questions. You are welcome to share whatever that you have. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. So we're going to start our session off with what's possible and who's making it possible. And I'd like to call up the guy that keeps me out of financial jail, Mr. Baraka Kassian, Managing Director of Simti Tech Limited and Simplify VFD. Karibu Baraka. Can we give him a round of applause?
Hi everyone, how are you? I believe I have a presentation. I'll just wait for it to come up. I could still do it without the presentation. Yeah? All right, so is there a marker? All right, I'll proceed. So by introduction, my name is Baraka Kassian. I'm a tax consultant and an auditor, but I'm also run a startup called Simplify VFD. And what is Simplify? So I believe most of us here know what an EFD receipt is. For those who don't know, for our guests, every time you purchase something in Tanzania, you probably would have gotten a thin slip of paper that fades away, is very long, and does not do much purpose other than keep a record of your sales. What Simplify does in a nutshell, it digitizes that whole process. Because the problem here is that the paper is not good for the environment. Additionally, the hardware cost is not good for small businesses. And last but not least, it doesn't fit in well with automation. Most businesses have the point of sale system, then they have a POS machine, point of sale, they have the EFD machine, and they have the accounting system. So you're duplicating the same sale process. And what doesn't help is that the law requires all companies in Tanzania to comply with that law. And if you don't do that, you're facing penalties up to roughly $1,500 for small businesses. So what Simplify does, we try to digitize that, and we have various ways of doing it. Without having to purchase that machine, you can use our app, and you can issue EFDs anytime, any place with an internet connection. But in addition to that, you don't have to use our app. You could use our web app, and we've gone further by allowing other businesses to issue receipts via WhatsApp or via USSD if you do not have internet. So the goal here is to allow anyone, anywhere, any business size to comply with tax laws, but also have access to their data. Now, in the whole scheme of digital transformation, where does it fit in? I think the whole fiscalization invoicing journey has been a long one in the country and even outside the country. But the transformation angle here isn't just the receipts element. How do we use our data to make better decisions? How quickly can you access your reporting? What if you don't have your phone and you're stuck in a place with no network? Can you use your SSD shortcodes to issue receipts and comply? So the question that I leave with you and the question I ask myself every day is, what can we do much more than this? If you think about it, Simplify, yes, it simplifies your invoicing, but it's one part of the business journey. What if your data could tell you you need to comply with VAT registration? And I think that's something we need to be discussing today as part of this topic today, and that's something we're thinking about every day at Simplify. As a tax consultant, how can I embed some of my knowledge, some of my experience in this app that will allow you to run your business more smoothly? Well, on the impact side, I chose to add an impact slide because not only do we help small businesses, but we have enough data to quantify how much paper we're saving. We have enough data to quantify how much we're saving you in costs, and also we're saving the environment in not using non-recyclable plastic POS machines. We're also saving a lot of time. We're able to do average and figure out how much time that you are saving using our app. We are fortunate to have been trusted with a lot of partners. We have a few of our clients in the room. I see you, Lillian. Lillian uses Simplify. But also even the government has been using our APIs. Air Tanzania is a good example. We have got some good partners, including Funguo, who have seen what we're doing and are supporting us on that journey. And we've also won a few awards here and there. But last but not least, we are also looking at other ways of, as I mentioned earlier, promoting digital transformation by adding more and more to this feature at a cost-affordable price. You might have seen some of our team members outside. I don't want to take a lot of your time, but what I want to leave you with this is, if you're a small business, if you're a big business, if you're looking to do any commercial venture, what can you do to, what is disruptive enough, and what can you do to transform your business over and above invoicing? And you'll be hearing a lot about Simplify in the next couple of years as we try to fix those problems for you. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Baraka. Our next speaker is actually the winner of the 2024 Global Citizen Prize that she just picked up recently. And this is a prize that is globally recognized with thousands of applications. And I believe she's the first one from Tanzania to win this prize. Miss Lydia Charles Moyo, Executive Director for her initiative, and Lydia will be talking about her game-changing program, Panda Digital.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's very overwhelming. Thank you, Catherine. So like she said, my name is Lydia Charles Moyo. I will be presenting on behalf of the team from her initiative and Panda Digital. We also have a presentation. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so today we'll be talking about Panda Digital. Sorry. Okay, I need help. Yeah. So Panda Digital is one of the products from her initiative. And before I go forward to say what it is, I'll just take you a little bit back from the history and how it was founded. So Panda Digital was founded in 2021, and the push behind it was COVID-19. And I remember by that time, most of us did not have physical interactions, and some of our young women owning business had to shut down because they could not access markets. And so we were challenged on how do we actually digitize our process working with young women entrepreneurs. But also we saw the rapid growth of digital and technology, seeing there's so much potential in the digital economy, and we started to think, what can we do as an organization working with young women entrepreneurs to actually continue supporting them, leveraging on technology. So Panda Digital is addressing few problems, and one of it is unemployment. In Tanzania, every year we have over 1 million new graduates that are entering the labor market, but unfortunately, out of that, only 40% gets formal jobs, meaning the remaining 60% going for self-employment. So Panda Digital wants to address that by creating more jobs for young women in Tanzania. But also we wanted to address the issue of gender and urban digital divide, considering there are more men online than women, but also there's more access of digitization technology for young women in urban. But also there's an issue around gender-based violence, and I know we're very familiar around that, and we were thinking, since when you're working with women, you're not dealing with only one issue, there are also other cross-cutting issues that are affecting them, including gender-based violence. So for us was like, how do you leverage technology to address such issue? So Panda Digital is the first Swahili hybrid e-learning platform dedicated to support young women entrepreneurs to access skills and resources to start and run smart businesses in the digital economy. How it works, we use a website and an AI, artificial intelligence powered SMS to actually do the same. So through our platform, when you go, you'll be able to access courses, you'll be able to access expert services, you'll also be able to access different opportunities. And if you're in the urban, you can use the website, which is pandadigital.co.tz, but if you're in the rural, you can use Panda SMS. Our goal is to actually leverage on technology and entrepreneurship to empower young women entrepreneurs in Tanzania, but also in Swahili-speaking countries, because our platform is in Swahili. Some of the objectives that we look forward in the next 5 years is to actually support 50,000 young women entrepreneurs with e-learning curriculums here in Tanzania, but as well in Swahili-speaking East African countries. But also we want to expand our reach 70% in Tanzania and 30% in East Africa, considering we have different platforms, which is the website and the AI-powered SMS. We would like to see most young women in Tanzania and in East Africa gain such opportunities. But also we want to support over 5,000 young women who are experiencing gender-based violence in terms of sexual corruption, and they're not able to access legal aid or social support. So through our platform, you'll be able to support you by reporting and link you with appropriate services that you need. And lastly is to establish Panda Digital Clubs. I'm sure most of us know one of the biggest challenges is not having basic digital skills for youth, young women, and even men to utilize opportunities that are found in digital economy. So we want to open these clubs so that we start encouraging and supporting youth to utilize digital and technology. So why Panda Digital? I am so sure there's so many innovative solutions, but for us, we feel like Panda Digital is crossing barriers such as time. You can learn anytime that you need. You can start today and finish next week, but also crossing barriers of resourcing. There are services that are free for young women who cannot afford, and there are services that you can pay. And another thing is being in Swahili. English has been a barrier for a while. So having our local language as the main language in the platform gives us an opportunity for many young women, the ones who have been to school and the ones who have not been to school, to be able to utilize it. And the last thing is it being a hybrid model that is rural-urban, supporting young women in the rural and in the urban. Some of the components that we have, you can see we have causes, opportunities, and this week, during Innovation Week, we're also launching Panda Digital using WhatsApp. Just to wrap up, because Catherine is here, how does Panda Digital contribute to the digital economy? We're equipping young people with basic digital skills, but we are also breaking barriers of rural-urban in terms of just supporting the urban and forgetting the rural girls. And we're also supporting launching e-businesses, and even the traditional businesses, we're also working with them to move them and shift them to the online business. And some of the recognitions we've got, you can see we've got a recognition from Ministry of Gender. Some of it was from Roddenberry, and the one that Catherine has mentioned from Global Citizen. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lydia. Our next speaker is a business development leader and the founder of Niajiri, Ms. Lillian Sechelela Madeje.
Asante, Catherine Rose. I should time myself. So, as introduced, my name is Lillian. I've been in the human capital industry in Tanzania for the last 13 plus years. And Niajiri platform actually stemmed from the fact that there was always this gap between employers looking for talent and talent actually being readily available in the marketplace. I also do have a presentation, but I'll continue talking. So, as Niajiri, literally the problem that we're looking at solving for is access to talent in the marketplace. So one, we work with 2 customers at any one point in time. Talent, who is having lack of employability skills. Data shows us that about out of 10 that are graduating, 6 do not have employability skills. Your problem solving, communication, critical thinking, digital literacy, all of that. But then they're also seeking opportunities. So a place that they can actually be viewed and get access to all of these opportunities, AKA jobs, also gig opportunities. On the other end, we have employers who are seeking employees. So Niajiri platform comes to the fore in being a workforce platform that actually skills up entry-level talent, but on the other hand, provides access to curated talent to the employers. So how we used technology or digital technology is being able to give access to courses on Niajiri platform to our users. They also get access to assessment. So things simple like SWOT analysis, your skills sets. What are you good at? What are you not good at? But also integrating psychometric assessments. These are mostly assessments that are needed in the marketplace. But even going further in personality assessments, understanding what it is that you're good at and what you're not good at. Online interviewing coaching, so we have packages as low as 5,000 shillings, whereby a student can actually pay for this, or somebody who's looking for a job, they can get courses around, coaching around CV writing, as well as preparing for an interview, but also self-awareness, which is also important. And obviously, the access to opportunities. So access to opportunities there comes from the basic fact that as they're doing all of these different engagements, there's a leaderboard. The leaderboard actually then does recommendations, the tech part of it. But going further, you know, in terms of what makes Nigeria, so usually people ask, why Nigeria? You're just you're a job platform, you're connecting, yes. That's what we're doing, but there is training, there's credentialing that happens within the system. We do vetting, so we're also able to do, if you put in your recommender, we're able to check really if you have whatever you've mentioned there is actually correct, but all of this is done through technology, discovery and interviewing prep, as well as creating a community of actual users. As well as on the other hand, when I spoke about employers, we're giving them access to an applicant tracking tool. So we have 3 sets of employers that we work with at any one point in time. Those who are SMEs that are just looking for 1 or 2 employers that we get access them through our database, which right now is at 44,000 users. And then those who are actually looking for a tool to manage their own recruitment. We provide a white label tool, and this brings about efficiency in hiring. So usually it would take about 10, 15 days in actually going through CVs, but using our system, you can actually do it just at a click of your fingertips. But then also access to data, being able to understand who is being hired, which positions, how long does it actually take to hire, et cetera, et cetera. So testimonials over the last period that we've been existing for about 6-7 years, great traction across. So by default, the people who are much more excited of using the system are on the other end in terms of our entry-level talent, but we've been able to grow our database over the last 3 years of operation, actual operation post-COVID, and working with different sectors and actually going across the sectors. I have 1 minute to go. But yeah, so I think that the discussion, rolling over from what Lydia shared in terms of 1 million talent that is entering the marketplace, we aim to use technology to bring about efficiency in hiring as a workforce platform. But then on the other hand, it's also being able to skill up the talent. And there are opportunities, but there are also challenges. That's the reality. So one of the things that I've been grappling with is just the basic fact that we do have 44,000 users, which is a great number. But when we actually come to drill down of those who are active on the platform, you can range anywhere between 5,000 to 8,000 in a month. So being able to transform that, it takes a whole while, and we're starting to see within the last 1 to 2 years much more traction. So the more of these activities that are happening and engagements in seeing how more of our youth we can get engaged so that they can get the digital literacy, they can get the financial literacy, as what Lydia is doing through platforms such as this and innovations, hopefully will bring about transformation. Asanteni.
Thank you, Ms. Sechalela. And thank you for also raising that it's a long process, right? It's a iterative process, and what I've really enjoyed hearing is that everyone's talking about putting people at the center of their solutions, going back to the principles of design thinking, and also that things of impact sometimes take time. Our next speaker, Mr. Imani Kajula, I don't even know if I should say what he does. I feel like he's so well known. He's the CEO of Simba Sports Club. Karibu.
Good afternoon. How many Simba fans are here, guys? Raise your hands. Wow. Even those who are fans of Yanga could come to our side today. Well, I'm Imani Kajula. I'm very much innovation fanatics for years, having worked with banks and now working with a club I love so much. Simba, formed at Sunderland, 1936, quite old institution, and then transformed to Simba 1972. How many know the percentage of lions in Tanzania vis-a-vis global? My dear, we are a home of 50% of lions in the world. So imagine how the name befits the facts of the world. Simba Sports Club Company Limited. Most you know it as Simba Sports Club, but that is very much a sporting name. But this is a company limited with 49% ownership by the investor, Mo Dewji, and then 51% owned by members. So it has gone through a lot of transformation. I'm working in one of the fastest growing sectors in Tanzania. You can imagine, 2017, club budget was 1.5 billion. Right now, 24 billion. You can tell. Fastest growing sector. And I think it's befitting to be standing here talking to innovators, because I think this is one among most underrated industry that is very fast growing. How do you guys think about 2027 AFCON happening in Tanzania? I worked in tourism sector. I sit in several boards of tourism sector. Let me challenge you before I talk some few facts here. One, Dar es Salaam is not a tourism destination. Why? Because the tourism properties haven't been identified and promoted. Who are better placed to identify them as you innovators? How many visited Mwalimu Nyerere home at Magomeni? Raise your hand here. I'm sure 0.1%. There I am. His home at Magomeni has all the things you'd wish to see. From the days of liberation to independence to his death, seated there. But how many visited Mandela's home in Soweto, South Africa, when you go to South Africa? Who are to do that work? You guys here. Tourism. Why is it a great sector? This year, month-to-month growth, we have collected $3.2 billion US. I've not made a mistake. $3.2 billion. In T shillings, that is 7.5 trillion. 25% of Forex is earned through tourism. There's so much innovators like you can do in sporting and tourism sector. Let me go back to Simba Sports Club, the great club in Africa. It's now ranked number 6. It's now ranked number 6 in Africa. We are growing very fast. And one among challenges that to us digital has come into rescue had been, we have over 20 million funds, but monetization of 20 million funds had been one of the great nightmares. And one among facts is there was no digitization of most of our funds. That's problem number one. Number two, sports now is so much tech related. We had to adopt and embrace innovation and digital place as well. What I can tell you today, Simba Sports Club does know if a player is tired, how many kilometers he has run, which side the goalkeeper is throwing the ball more than the other, so he needs to change. Opposition analysis is done by digital technology. We have our goalkeeping coach who does analyze opponent every day to say which side do they take penalties. By the way, there's no goalkeeper who takes penalties, but goalkeepers who knows where a footballer normally shoot his shot, if you didn't know. So it's the goalkeeping coach using digital solutions to know the side, players, 11 players playing, 18 in the bench, where do they kick their shoot? So what the goalkeeper does, he looks at his goalkeeping coach, and goalkeeping coach could say, this side. That's how digital has come to rescue to the footballing and sports world. Today, we evaluate our players, substitution through digital technology, knowing how many kilometers they've run. Is it over and above his normal performance? And then they'll make a judgment to say, this guy is very tired, he needs to be replaced. We do health analysis utilizing digital technology as we are speaking. But more so, I didn't come here to boast on how we're using technology to enhance our club performance, but rather to challenge innovators. We are an open-minded club. We need to be working with you guys. Come along and make money. Next month, somebody's seated here, I'll never reveal a secret, we'll be launching a new innovation with mobile network operators in Tanzania. Imagine how football is transforming. So I would say, I'm quite happy to be here to sit, listen, and share with you how sports can be greatly impacted by digital innovation. Thank you so much.
Imani, I think you're too modest. Because I know for a fact that the first ever mobile app in this country was created by your company. Congratulations. So a pioneer, honestly, in this field.
We have the fastest growing and leading WhatsApp channel in Eastern Central Africa.
Amazing.
154 downloads.
That's incredible.
Subscribe as well.
So something else that's really interesting, and everybody's kind of shared this, is this journey of who are your customers, knowing who your customers are, and again, putting them at the center of what you're building. The dev team spent over 2 months at Simba Sports Club going out to talk to customers, not just in Dar, across the whole country. That's over 2 months of time spent talking to your customer base. And what's really exciting for me is their entire dev team is Tanzanian. How amazing is that? Homegrown products. Are you inspired? Because I am. I'm like, I can go out there and change the world now. This is what I'm planning to do. Head out today. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for Serengeti Bites. I'm really inspired. I'm ready to change the world, pick up an award like Lydia sometime when I get older and change the world. So very inspired to do that. And that's what we hope you leave with today. And we're not ending here, but we hope you leave with this today, that at the end of this week, you're thinking about the incredible speakers we've had today. And what are you going to do to change our world? And how do we get to 2050? And to take us into that journey of 2050, we're going to move forward a little bit and look at what are we doing on a larger scale. So we've heard what really inspirational entrepreneurs are doing, how they're changing communities and changing our communities in the world around. So now we're going to look a bit broader. What's happening in terms of Tanzania? What's happening on a larger scale, on a national scale? Where are those sparks happening? And our first speaker, Ms. Barbara Baron, is the Program Officer for Digitalization and STI with the European Union delegation in Tanzania. Karibu, Barbara.
Okay. Sorry. Well, first of all, let me say that this is impressive. I mean, the stories I've been listening today are really, really inspiring. Also from the point of view of someone that is on the side of more talking about the funding and policies. All this sounds so boring after all this, to be honest. So, but this is also what I would like to say. We need feedback from all of you. We need to understand where we have to go. And myself, as introduced before, I work for the European Union delegation here. I just arrived in October last year, and before I was based in Brussels at our headquarters, where I was overseeing all the digital programs and projects that we fund across the world. I had the chance to work a lot with my predecessor in Tanzania, and thanks to that, I'm here today. Let me say that digital is a priority for the European Union within Europe as well as in international cooperation. And our reference framework for our policy is the Global Gateway, what we call the Global Gateway, that aims to boost smart, clean, secure links in the digital, transport, energy sectors, and also aims to strengthen education, research, and health systems. So through this framework, we have a powerful package of instruments that we can activate to foster digital transformation. And the objective is to promote a human-centric digital connectivity and digital transformation, resilient links, open interoperable internet, and also foster the twin green and digital transition, as well as fostering international cooperation and partnership in the research and innovation. And the areas we focus on are 4 core pillars. So we work on the side of digital governance. So we look into the policy and regulatory frameworks. For instance, we care a lot about data protection. As you may know, we have the GDPR, that is a gold standard that we are using inside our digital single market in the EU. We care a lot about digital connectivity. We think that nothing will happen if we don't foster digital connectivity internationally, regionally, and locally, reaching out to the most remote areas. Today you have presented some initiatives that also look into how people in the rural areas can still benefit from digital transformation. And for this to happen, we also need connectivity there. And then digital skills, entrepreneurship, and access to finance is our 3rd pillar work. And finally, e-services. Public and private services, for instance, e-government services is one of our core areas of interest. About digital connectivity, through our package of intervention, we are ready to fund from different type of segments, so submarine cables to boost international connectivity, to regional fiber optic backbone. We are now mapping the missing links across the region, and we're ready to fund through different type of investments the connectivity, the regional connectivity, and would be great also if Tanzania could benefit from those things. And then last mile, either through deployment of last mile of satellite connectivity or other solution reaching out to remote areas. Also, we will look into how to fund green and secure data centers. This is a very important. Oh, sorry, for whole digital transformation to happen. It's very important that we look also into digital governance, so the digital standards, this cybersecurity, data protection, privacy, and how also cross-border data flows will happen, and we need to regulate this. Let's look at the digital programs we have. We have digital programs at national level, so for Tanzania, we have it for the whole region. For instance, we work with the East Africa community, and we have it also continental. And all these initiatives can benefit Tanzania. The flagship program we have is in the country is Digital for Tanzania. With that, we work very closely with the government and with the Ministry of ICT. Is a program that we started 3 years ago, and it's about fostering digital reforms, connectivity, starting from the e-government services, so connecting, expanding the GovNet network. And as a third area is women's access to digital. So, for instance, we measure that through promoting mobile phone services access by women. Another component of this program is more on expert exchange from EU member states, in particular Finland, Estonia, and Germany. Because we realized that we had gone through the establishment of the digital single market. Some of our member states are expert in different type of products. For instance, Estonia on the interoperability of system e-government, and they are providing support to different institutions in the country, as well as they are working together with the private sector and universities to raise awareness and to work on the compliance with the cybersecurity, privacy, and data protection. And perhaps something that is more of interest for this audience is the Tanzania Inclusive Digital Economy project that UNCDF implements for us, and you will get a whole session from our colleagues tomorrow. But just to mention that this is very important because it's increasing the aim is to increase the access and usage of digital payment and digital financial services, as well as supporting the Tanzania fintech startup ecosystem. And just a few results that then I'm sure that our colleague will continue speaking tomorrow about is the result of this first year and a half of implementation, and the launch of the support that we gave to technical and financial support that we gave to 12 fintech startup in the first phase of the project. Ongoing, there is another round of support that 10 fintech startups are at the moment getting the support, and in 2025 there will be a third round of support, and therefore this is something that is of extreme interest for all of you. Then there is also, as a result, there was the establishment of the Angel Investor Academy to fund the fintech startup ecosystem, as well as other inputs related to the understanding of the sector, understanding the challenges, and providing advice on how to boost it. I wanted to mention also some other programs that we are at the moment implementing. There is a continental initiative that is called Data Governance, and is an initiative with a budget of 50 million. Also other EU member states are contributing, so not only EU funds, but also funds from Germany, France. And Tanzania is a country, one of the focus country of this project. With this project, we work on data policies and regulation. Also, we work on data use cases, and on data. And then we have a data infrastructure facility that is. That can be activated to map investments that could be bankable in terms of data infrastructure. So this is also something that is very interesting for the private sector of this country, and something we could explore how to bring forward some projects. Something that we just closed. We had a call for proposal that closed 2 days ago that was targeting non-profit actors to support data-driven digital social innovation. And it was for the whole, for all Africa. There were some country focus, and Tanzania was one of those. And through our channels, we try to advertise as much as possible this type of instrument, but these are very important for those innovators that want to provide solution, data-driven solution, and in this case was the digital social innovation, the topic. Now we are about to open a new one that is related, that is for the private sector. It will not provide grants, it will only provide capacity building activity, but it's in the area of financial inclusion, access to finance, banking, and I think this is another opportunity that you might want to consider. And then finally, a last program I wanted to present is this one that we are carrying out with the East Africa community. We have just got the allocation of funds, and for the East Africa continental, for the East Africa component, we will have 25 million euro, and is to work in the area, in three very important areas also for this country, which are e-governance. So, for instance, e-identity, secure authentication is one of the focus of this project. Cybersecurity, working on critical infrastructure, cyber hygiene, cybersecurity policy and strategies, and finally, e-commerce, e-payments. So this is an example of how our regional cooperation integrates with the national, and for this I think that our interlocutor is more the government, but we will look into how to create opportunities for the private sector and startups as well. The way we operate, we have a lot of funds that can be blended, so grants that can be blended with loans, and will be used to de-risk investments from private sector. So this is a new type of modality we are now scaling up, and there are a lot of opportunity in this area, and therefore is of interest of the private sector. If any of these thematic area I mentioned are important, and they are considering investment in that, this is a discussion that we should have. Well, thank you very much. This is my email, and please be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for taking us through the D4T, Digital for Tanzania initiative, but also for, I think I saw a lot of eyes perk up when you said that there's room for private sector engagement now as well, which is always really exciting in this space. Our next speaker, Mohamed Mashaka, who is the Director of Information System Development and Services at the Ministry of ICT and Communications, will take us through Tanzania Digital Project and what's happening in our country on a national scale as well. Karibu, Mohamed.
Yeah, as I've been introduced, my name is Mohamed Mashaka, Director of ICT. When I arrived here, they gave me an AKA name, Robot Eunice Brother. Yes, before I start, actually, we welcome all young innovators to participate on the African Youth AI and Robotic Competition, which will be held in October 13th to 17th. So the applications are open for you guys to give us your innovations and all those sorts. Very quick, I've listened to all these presentations here. They've been fantastic, and most of them, they've talked much about the digital economy, which is so much impressing. As a person who is coming from the ministry, our big role is to make sure we make the field ready for you guys to play. That's the only role we have. And to make that, we actually came up with digital economy framework. So I would probably advise you guys to participate into that, and then things will follow onto it. And you go through the framework as well. Briefly, as a ministry, we are running a Digital Tanzania project. This project has about 4 components. We have a digital ecosystem, we have digital connectivity, we have digital platform and services, and also we have project management, which manages all these projects. There are a number of initiatives which we have in all those components there, but because of time, I won't be able to go through all of them. One of the output of this digital Tanzania project actually is the digital economy. The digital economy framework, which has actually been approved by the Madam President, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, has actually 6 pillars. The first pillar is enabling digital infrastructure. In here we talk about all aspects of connectivity, the hard infrastructure, the soft infrastructure. I will explain a little bit today on the part of the soft infrastructure. But when you talk about the hard infrastructure, you talk about the cell towers, all these communication towers which are there. The second pillar is governance and enabling environment. This is the part which I actually said. We as a ministry, our bigger role is to make sure we make environment ready for you guys to play upon. The third pillar is the digital literacy and skills development. And the fourth one is the digital innovation culture and enabling technologies. I think this is one of the key areas for us to be here today, the issue of innovations. We want to have a country with innovation culture, you know, the youth and everybody on it. Another pillar is nurturing digital inclusion and accessibility, and then digital financial services. So for today, I will talk a little bit about the soft part of it. Now, as a ministry in collaboration with National Identification Authority and RITA and ZCSRA, these are registrars responsible for birth and death for mainland and Zanzibar, and National ID. I think you all know about the National ID, Kitambulisho cha Taifa. Now, as a government, we have rebranded it and we called it Jamii number. So Jamii number actually is a number issued to all citizens from birth, because right now you can see the NIDA number, it doesn't include all those age below 18. But with this one, with Jamii number, actually when a child is born, then will automatically be identified and given that number. And that number will go throughout the cycle. They register on primary schools, you know, when they go to work, you know, get employed, marriage, agriculture, business, and everything. All those events that happens in the world. So many questions on this. Why having another number while we already have NIDA number? So Jamii number is actually a NIDA number. It will be the same number. So you're not going to be asked to actually re-register or get another number. It will be the same one. It's just that the government now is in that environment that we have to compete with the private sector. So we are trying to rebrand our different initiatives to make sure that we are up and go. So it's actually the same number. The only difference is now it will start being issued when the child is born. And it will actually, all those citizens who have not managed to have the number, we have defined means on how they should get that. So this one with Jamii number, expectation is all citizens in this country will have that number. Now, coming to the soft part, probably because of time, I'll go back to this one. Sorry. We have one slide here, which I think it's, okay. Now, as a government, we have something called Samia Technology Stack. With Samia Technology Stack, we have 3 things. Number one, we have this Jamii number that we are talking about. That is, when you talk about Samia Technology Stack, it's like digital public infrastructure for the country. We put an identity around the country. With this, we have 3 issues, which the ministry we are actually focusing right now. The first one is Jamii number. This is the one. The second one is Jamii Malipo. And the third one is Jamii Data Shirikishi. I think the minister mentioned that during the launch, during the parliament, during the parliamentary sessions. Now, the first Jamii number, as I explained, The Jamii Malipo is actually the Tanzania instant payment system. It's how now all these financial services become interoperable to one another. So it's purely as a nationwide, we have something initiatives from the Bank of Tanzania, BOT, which is Tanzania Instant Payment System. Actually, they connect all these financial services, mobile money, we have banks, we have wallets and everything on there. So these are the initiatives we feel for the systems to be interoperable, we need Jamii Malipo. And the third one is Jamii Data Shirikishi, whereby all citizens actually will have their own, manage their own data. And for that, we have something called Jamii Data Exchange Platform, whereby we are building now a platform of public sector and private sector, how they can communicate to one another. Because right now, for example, if Vodacom or Tigo, for example, they want to communicate with NIDA, they can go point to point. But with this one, we'll have a single platform where all these communication, if are needed, then they go to that Tanzania Enterprise Service Bus or Jamii Data Exchange Platform, and they leave a footprint. So at any time of the day, we can get the results of how many people have registered with the mobile number today or something like that. As a ministry, as I said before, our bigger role is to make sure we make the ground ready for you guys to play. Number one, for this financial year, we have developed the digital economy framework. The second one, we have managed to develop National ICT Policy 2024. These two documents, the digital economy and this one, are on final stages of being approved. So there is no more comments on that, instead only the comments during the implementation part. The third book which we actually derived is the Tanzania Digital Public Infrastructure Blueprint. This is the engine. When you talk about the digital economy implementation, you come here. This is our identity as a country. As I mentioned here, we have, in here, normally 3 things are talked about on the digital public infrastructure. Digital payment, digital identity, and data sharing. These are the 3 things in any of the countries. So to us here, as I mentioned, we have Jamii number, Jamii Malipo, and Jamii Data Shirikishi. So that's one of the key documents which actually, just to show the directives of the country. Another one is Tanzania Digital Interoperability and Standardization Framework. This is the one that is coming to actually putting a country in a stamp. For example, right now, we don't have standards. For example, there was a time that we were developing a system for physical addressing system, and the question we were asked, like, your physical addressing system followed which standard? You know, did it follow the South African standard? Did it follow ISO international standard? So we felt like even South Africa have their own standard. Why not us? So this document actually is coming to issue all these standards around the country. So the output of this document is all individual standards. For example, specification for ICT equipment, web application standards. We can all agree together what are the minimum requirements for these systems to be, because we don't want to be a country that is dumping state, you know, and at the end of the day, we want to create innovation, because sometimes innovators can have a brilliant solutions, but how do they sell it to other, like government or private sector? We can say, no, 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 we don't want that, we will build our own. No, so for this, to promote innovation, we need to have this standard. Anyone in the country can play a role in the market and sell their products. That's the important thing of having this document. Another one is the Tanzania Enterprise Architecture Framework 2024. This one actually brings out the revolutions. You know, when you have your own systems, now how do you transform yourself? Because sometimes there are so many existing systems that needs to be integrated, but we need to change them. Now, we look into aspect of data. We look into aspect of processes, how they are. We look into aspect of security. We look on the technology which has been used. So actually, this document is the one that transforms into this current digital economy that we really want. The aspect of integration of systems, for that to occur, for system to talk, you need to do that. So it's like you rehabilitate your system if you have done that one. So this is for national. For whoever wants to do it, we have provided a guideline because some are difficult for them to understand on how to do that. Another part, we have done it in Swahili now. It's mwongozo wa taifa wa matumizi bora sahihi na salama ya tehama. This focus on how now to bring awareness to citizens. Just citizens, they need to know what they shouldn't do and what they have to do. Why? Because we are now moving into digital economy and implementation. As a ministry, we are now coming with National ICT Act, which actually will be very, if you go against it, that means you'll be punished. So before you move into that, first of all, we said, why don't we make citizens aware? They should just not need to know what is good that needs to be done as far as ICT is concerned, as far as digital is concerned, and what is bad that actually they shouldn't do. So this is actually for the citizens. And another one we have done is mwongozo wa kitaifa wa ujumuishaji wa makundi ya anuai. Anuai is special groups, like people with disabilities, because when you talk about digital economy, no one should be left behind. So it's inclusive, all of them. We've had here a lot of presentation about women's and, and all those stuff. So how do we bring everyone on board? This is the one we are talking about, because you have cases where people who can't see, they want to withdraw money from ATM, but how can they do it? Our ATM doesn't have a voice reply. So what do they do onto that? So that's the things which are there. And that's it. So thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. If you're looking for all the frameworks that he talked about, you could, who said yes? That was loud, yeah. You can find them on tcra.go.tz or on mawasiliano.go.tz. You can catch him after the session, Carol, from Launchpad. He'll be here after the session for Q&A with your adoring fans, right? Thank you. And thank you for just a really interesting session from both Barbara and Mohammed, because it's two different viewpoints, two different entities coming together, but we're all building along the same value chain, right? We're all building for the same economy, we're all building along the same value chain. We're just different inflection points along this value chain. So from here, we're going to go into an expert talk by somebody who is new to the country, but not new to the sector, and definitely not new to the continent. Mr. Philip Besimire, CEO and MD of Vodacom Tanzania, is going to give us a little insight into how Tanzania's digital competitiveness can be driven through digital transformation. Karibu, Philip.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is what they tend to call the graveyard shift, so I hope I'll keep you awake. And I'm also mindful of the very generous introduction by Catherine. I'm not sure about the expertise. And then lastly, to correct you, I've been here longer than a year. I don't think I can still qualify to say that I'm new. No, please do. I accept apologies in M-Pesa. Okay, greetings from Vodacom. We have just come back from what was a turbulent week, as you would know, and I think that's a very good segue into why digital is important, because a week without connectivity was, excuse the language, but hell on earth. Obviously, to manage the customer frustration, but also just not to be connected, even ourselves as individuals. So again, our apologies for that mishap. And like I said in one of my communications, that it was a very big teachable moment. So many things learned on what to do, not just ourselves as Vodacom, but as an industry, as a sector, as a country. There's a lot that needs to be done to make sure that we are more resilient going forward. But today, ladies and gentlemen, it's a profound honor for me to speak about a topic that's of immense significance to the future of our beloved nation, driving Tanzania's economic competitiveness through digital transformation. Let us begin by examining the current economic outlook. Tanzania has made significant strides over the past decade. Our GDP growth rate is amongst the highest in sub-Saharan Africa, ranging between 6 and 7% annually. Despite the challenges faced by the global pandemic, we have been resilient and shown through. The World Bank projects that Tanzania's economy will continue to grow at a steady pace, driven by sectors such as agriculture, mining. The Simba CEO said tourism, including sports tourism. However, to sustain this kind of growth, we must look beyond the traditional sectors. And this is where the digital economy comes in. It encompasses information technology, telecommunications, and digital services, which offer a powerful engine for economic diversification and resilience. And I think the key word here is diversification, because I think with a young population that is connected all the time, it's going to be very challenging to steer them into the traditional sectors. I always joke that today, probably more than half of the people in this room were born when Facebook was already alive. Facebook was operational. So they don't know a world, or you don't know a world where there is no connectivity 24/7. For us, who were born those years, we discovered along the way, and you can still push us to agriculture, to farming with a hoe and a tractor, but you don't want that today. You want something that's connected. And I think this is where digital comes to play. We can make agriculture cool. We can make tourism cool. We can make sports cool, like you were saying. And this is how digital comes to play. Digital transformation is not merely about adopting new technologies. It's about reimagining how we conduct business, deliver services, and interact with the world. It's about harnessing the power of technology to create more efficient, inclusive, and innovative ecosystems. According to the GSMA report of 2024 on the State of the Industry report, by the end of 2023, 69% of the global population, which is about 5.6 billion people, subscribed to a mobile service. Mobile penetration is projected to increase to about 6.3 billion people, which is 74% penetration by 2030. At the end of 2023, 58% of the world's population used mobile internet, equating to about 4.7 billion users. And of the 3.4 billion people who remain unconnected to mobile internet, 90% already live in an area that's covered by mobile broadband, but probably do not use a mobile internet. Why is this important? When Lillian or Lydia speak about the market, they're not speaking about just the 60+ million Tanzanians. They're speaking about the billions. Why can't these services, why can't their innovations go to the world? But for them to go to the world, there needs to be connectivity. And for innovations that are outside of Tanzania to come to Tanzania, there needs to be connectivity. So that's why really driving connectivity is important, and that's what sits at the foundation of this. Connectivity. And it was great to hear Barbara speak of some of the initiatives that you're going to support in your space to really drive connectivity, including last mile connectivity. In Tanzania, according to the TCRA, as of 2024, there are over 70 million subscriptions. Now, 70 million, you might wonder, but they're not 70 million Tanzanians. That's because some of you have got 2 phones, an iPad, a laptop, and so many other devices, and all these have a connection to them. This widespread penetration provides a solid foundation for digital services, from mobile banking to e-commerce, which can drive financial inclusion and economic participation. Furthermore, the government's efforts to expand broadband infrastructure, such as the NICTBB, all through the PPP, which is operators and UCSAF, we're able to expand connectivity across the country and thereby laying the groundwork for a thriving digital ecosystem. The economic impact of mobile technologies. and services is profound. I mean, GSMA also reports that in 2023, mobile technologies and services generated 5.4% of global GDP, contributing $5.7 trillion of economic value. We can do that here as well. And I think one of the questions or discussions we've had, for example, with our Honorable Minister Nape is, do we really measure the contribution of digital in Tanzania? That capability has not yet matured, and most times it's guesstimated or approximating, but this is, given the size of the ecosystem, this is a space that is growing, and I think the more we formalize it, even in terms of measures and so on, the more significance and prominence it will gain in the country and on the economic agenda. The global mobile ecosystem supported around 35 million jobs in 2023, with 19 million direct jobs and 16 million indirect jobs. Mobile technology is therefore central to Tanzania's digital transformation, connecting more people than any other communication technology. Tanzania is among the most advanced mobile money markets in sub-Saharan Africa. Mobile money services have reduced transaction costs, improved safety for individuals and businesses, and economic efficiency by eliminating the need for users to travel long distances to bank branches. But I'm sure for the young people today, that's not something that they can relate to, because you were born when there was already M-Pesa. So you don't know a world where your auntie, your uncle, your grandfather gave you money to get onto a bus and go to Tanga or somewhere. Now you just click of a button and the money is gone. But that's taken years of innovation, years of investment, and that's where we are today. And Tanzania is one of the countries where there's been advancement in that regard. Additionally, the service has created employment and additional income for tens of thousands of SMEs who act as mobile money agents. As an industry today, we have more than 400,000 mobile money agents combined. I mean, this is from small wakalas to aggregators, merchants, and so on. Investments in mobile network infrastructure and services are crucial to achieving Tanzania's development goals, highlighting the need for a supportive regulatory framework to sustain industry growth. And I think from the previous speaker, you heard about the government's approach to ICT and the vision that they have for the country. That, to be achieved, needs a predictable and sustainable regulatory environment. Today, any Tanzanian across the nation is within 3 kilometers reach of financial services, thanks to mobile money agents. These services include banking, savings, insurance, money transfer, to mention but a few. As I'll try and conclude soon, the Global Report on Mobile and Telecom by GSMA suggests that 5G technology is another frontier that we must embrace. There were 1.6 billion 5G connections at the end of 2023, expected to rise to 5.5 billion by 2030 globally. 5G is expected to add more than $930 billion to the global economy in 2030. The mobile sector is projected to generate 1.5 trillion in capital expenditure between 2023 and 2030. While annual mobile revenue growth is expected to stay in positive territory, driven by 5G technologies. Now, why do I mention this? I think as more applications get developed, as more innovations come to play, for example, what you were mentioning, Imani, from Simba's point of view, a lot of that is going to be driven by the Internet of Things, putting sensors in your players' cars, in your players' boots, in all these things. And that's why investing in 5G is really going to be important going forward. And it opens up the ecosystem to more innovations, for example, agriculture, smart irrigations, and all these kinds of things. While the potential for digital transformation is immense, we must also acknowledge the challenges. And I recall, I think I was on a panel here, Carol, that you moderated a few months ago, and we spoke about these things. Digital literacy is key. Data privacy, very important. Cybersecurity and affordability. These things are really important as we scale and do a lot more things online. Ensuring that every Tanzanian can benefit from digital opportunities requires a concerted effort from both the public and private sectors. Mobile technology has become the most pervasive communication in Tanzania. And to drive economic competitiveness through digital transformation, we must act collectively and decisively. I think as I was coming in, I was speaking to the UNICEF country director, and I have said this in previous engagements and platforms, that the job to be done is massive, and there is no one single entity that can do it on their own. Lillian can't do it on her own, Lydia can't do it on her own, Imani can't do it on her own, the ministry can't do it on our own, Vodacom can't do it on our own, UNICEF can't do it on their own. We all need to come together and participate in this. And I think one of the gaps or maybe opportunities for us as people that are interested in this, as people that are actively participating in this, is to find a convener so that we don't duplicate efforts. Because many times what you find is that there is so many small things happening in parallel everywhere, and it requires a lot of effort, it requires a lot of investment, but we could come together and make this a comprehensive strategy going forward. In closing, let us embrace digital transformation as the key to unlocking Tanzania's economic potential. By leveraging technology, we can create more competitive, resilient, and inclusive economy that benefits all Tanzanians. Together, we can drive our nation toward a brighter, more prosperous future. Thank you.
Philip, thank you for helping us relive a very traumatic few days where we could not get online. There were flashbacks all around the room. People are tweeting, oh my gosh, I can't believe the voter MD made me go through that again. So thank you for that, much appreciated. But also thank you for reiterating how teachable that moment was for us. And for raising the point about potential, right, and opportunities, and that collaboration is imperative. And we've seen this throughout the whole morning, that we're all part of this value chain, and that we cannot do it on our own. So thank you for reiterating that, and you kind of softened the trauma of earlier. So we've heard about what you can do to succeed, right? People that are doing it. And then we heard from government, and we heard from donor partners, and how that comes into the value chain. We heard from the MNO about where they sit in this ecosystem. And we've heard some really interesting things, right? We've been inspired, we've been energized. So let's talk about what happens next. Where are these policy frameworks of ours? What are we really going to do to drive the digital evolution? How are we going to enhance economic competitiveness? Where are the gaps? What's needed? And for this, we're going to have a really interesting panel, actually. Carol, since you were already called out, I'm just going to ask you to come up and grab a chair. See, I'm giving you an option for a chair. Whichever chair you'd like, you can grab. Carol Ndosi, ladies and gentlemen, co-founder and executive director of the Launchpad Tanzania and chief of party for Women in Tech Tanzania. Welcome, Carol. Any chair you want, you get first pick. Our next panelist could be confused with a footballer. His name kind of sounds like he could be. Jose Luis Gonzalez, Program Officer with the Regional Economic Integration Department, European Union Delegation. And last but not least, a man we see all over social media, Kennedy Umari, CEO of Serengeti Bytes. We're going to take a bit. We're good. So we're going to talk about what we're doing, right? Where are the gaps? What do we need in terms of policy? And we've heard that kind of somewhat throughout the morning, but let's drill down a little bit more. I'll start with you, Jose Luis, just because you're right here. Sure. And if you do play football, do let us know. But in terms of kind of, and I really like the way Barbara kind of raised that question for us, and she brought it to the forefront. But in terms of where the European Union sits, and within your experience as well, what kind of policies are we looking at? What kind of policies do we need to leverage? What kind of where's the support that we need in it if we really want to accelerate our digital transformation? And are there any policy frameworks that you can think of that we need to be looking at? And I like the way Philip talked about this. This is collaborative, right? And there's a lot of different players within the ecosystem here. So where are these policy frameworks? What are the best practices, that Tanzania can adopt if we really want to enhance our economic competitiveness?
Sure, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm a big football fan, and I'm also a big Simba fan, so I'm very honored to be in front of the CEO today. Yeah, I think there's a lot that Tanzania can learn, and particularly from the European Union. I think it's important to understand that to have 27 countries to come together and really create laws is an achievement on its own, and of course to come together, but particularly to have a single digital market in Europe was already a huge, huge success. I think one area I would say that, as Barbara mentioned in her presentation, is a gold standard is EU GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. This is something that we are trying to show how human-centric it is, really how it's actually not for government, but for people, and then to ensure that people understand what is the consequences of data and how to actually manage it and in a safe and secure way. So I think that's one area, of course, that I think Tanzania can definitely consider. I think another area which is, of course, within this single digital market is, of course, how do these different systems speak to each other, right? Mashaka, the director, explained how we have a number of different frameworks, particularly on architecture frameworks, interoperability, and all these need to be able to speak to each other. They need to be able to reference each other. So I think this is something, of course, the EU, through our twinning project, we're working quite closely with the government on this. And I think it's still room for growth. But what I would say is that we're seeing, from when we started with the ministry in 2021, when they were quite new, actually, we were also new in the digital space. We saw that after COVID, there was a need to really actually go in, really understand where are the gaps in Africa and how can we share our experience from the European Union. And I think in data protection, cybersecurity, but of course, even engaging with the private sector here today is important. We need to understand what are your challenges. It's not government alone to create the laws and then that's it. There needs to be an engagement. And I think the government has made a concentrated effort to ensure that a lot of these policies are accessible to people. I hope people took the website names there, because I think it's your time to contribute, and it's not been adopted as of yet. It's just being discussed as we are here today. So I think there's a lot to learn, but I think in general, there's still other hurdles beyond policy. And I think this is what the Vodacom CEO mentioned, particularly around connectivity, particularly around skills. And these are sort of the underlying issues that we also need to consider beyond policy.
Do you have any examples of regional, local collaborations that have yielded positive results around digital transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to remember that Tanzania is part of the East African community. We have two very strong initiatives in this community, one being the One Network area. Tanzania is, even though it was a founding member of the East African Community Partnership, they were quite slow in terms of entering the One Network area. But I think recently they have now come in. This allows anyone from Tanzania with a Vodacom network to be able to roam and be able to not be charged locally or internationally. So that's one area I think is quite successful, and I think I'm happy to see Tanzania be part of this now. The second is the Smart Africa initiative. This is something, the ambition of the African Union, similar to how Europe has created its own single digital market. We also, through the African Union, have the Smart Africa initiative to create an African single digital market. Tanzania as well has been a bit slow on this, But from what I've heard in my discussions with colleagues, they are going to join quite soon, which is positive for me. We are going to actually be participating in the Transform Africa Summit in Nairobi in August. This is where we'll be discussing a bit of our packages to, of course, the wide African audience. And I think this is something that we, of course, are working quite closely. Another element I would say, because I sit with two hats, I work in the digitization sector, but I also work in the trade space, is our customs union in the East African community. Currently, right now, our customs union is not perfect. Yeah, and I think we need to remember that it's mostly because the systems are not speaking to each other. And mostly because to invest in those systems is heavy. To invest in connectivity is a lot. And so who takes that burden? It cannot be only the European Union, it cannot be the governments alone. We have to see the private sector involved in this. So I think with that, the European Union is working with all, of course, the customs agencies to create an interconnected customs system. This is, of course, a quite ambitious project that we're trying to do, and we hope that it will be successful, because I think it will make lives a lot easier. I think in terms of even the common market within EAC, right? Being able for people to move freely across the EAC is something that we want to see. We want to see Tanzanian being exported to EAC and vice versa, the East African community members to come to our country and help us and vice versa help them.
Thank you for raising that, this whole idea of the movement of labor, right, and skills across borders, which would be really interesting. And so I think one of the things you did mention as well was frameworks and working together. So Carol, I'm curious, what do you want to see? If I think about Carol Ndosi, Launchpad, and the Women in Tech platform, what specific policy changes or initiatives would you recommend to creating a more enabling environment for tech-driven businesses? What's on Carol's wish list?
What's on Carol's wish list? It's a lot. But first, can I just say, like, I was kind of liking the subtle jabs that Jose was giving, you know, Tanzania is too slow. So whoever is in the room, whoever is responsible, I hope they take that, because we really need to pull up our socks. But what's on our wish list as the Launchpad? Well, when the new national ICT policy draft came out, I remember like we were one of the first people to reach out to Mashaka and submit what we called recommendations. And from us, it was coming from a digital economy perspective, but also digital rights, as well as safe online spaces, because that's what we basically focus on when it comes to our programs. And so one of the things that we saw missing was still we're lacking when it comes to clear implementation strategies in the policy, and how they will now speak or rather translate to what can actually happen on the ground in terms of, for example, mobilization of funding, or rather funding mechanisms, you know, from both the public and private sector that would really speak to whatever challenges and needs that are in the industry right now or the ecosystem. If it's about enabling the innovation, you know, ecosystem, how are we doing it? Do we still leave it to Costec, who is going to be dispersing the funds, you know, with the support from UNDP or EU? Do we leave it to the likes of Vodacom, you know, or Tigo, who come up with different programs to support digital inclusion? Do we leave it to, for example, TPSF, you know? So the implementation strategies is something that I feel we can definitely work on just a little bit more. And of course, something that I know that they were working on in terms of integrating what we all felt, well, not all, but some of the actors in the ecosystem felt that was lacking was emerging technologies and how Tanzania is preparing for that, and, you know, what kind of frameworks are we setting up, you know, if it's about actors or rather a pipeline, like where do people go, if it's about intellectual property, how do you actually, you know, navigate through that? So those are some of the things that we saw. And of course, in the areas of digital rights, that merging with the GDPR, for example, but also there was very little connection with the data privacy law in there, that we felt that, you know, it could be somehow connected, but there could be some sort of a component in there that would possibly highlight it. I know it's two different documents, but they should be able to speak to one another. Also in the areas of safe online spaces, I'm glad that they took extra effort to include, for example, child safety, online, and it's something very important as we see more young people onboarding into digital platforms. But of course, online gender-based violence is still an issue, and I'm sure, CR, you know that, like, we keep on trying to tell them that, you know, we need to really be clear about what we mean when we say online violence, cyberbullying, et cetera, because all this is in the context of digital rights. But of course, I see that they've also announced that they're reviewing the Cybercrime Law 2015, so hopefully we do see some of those things coming out in those. So in my wish list, that's something that I hope for, but of course, another thing would be marginalized communities and, you know, rural groups. Like, how exactly are we making sure that whatever efforts that we're putting out there are really trickling down all the way to all these communities around Tanzania? If the target is really 85% coverage by 2025, where are we now? And is it just about connectivity? But what about, for example, digital skills that Philip had mentioned, digital literacy, but also just meaningful connectivity? You know, tumeona mwongozo hapo, look at me code switching to Swahili. But we just saw the mwongozo on safe online spaces. I'm wondering how many of us as actors in this room even have that document. How many of us were even aware that that document was, you know, in the system, you know? So it's something that is definitely, it needs more amplification, more awareness, and definitely more advocacy, I would say.
So if we're designing a program that is intentional about marginalized groups and groups that are often left behind, what are three things, Carol, we need to be thinking about when we're building programming and interventions?
The first thing that you should be thinking is something that you insisted on after a discussion yesterday was HCD, human-centered design. It's something, again, that we keep on learning through our programs. For example, when we started with capacity building programs around digital literacy, we're like, we're going to do workshops, we're going to call people, they're going to come, and then if we don't finish that, we're going to tell them to go to our website and YouTube, and then we forgot about the aspect of data affordability and how much it would take for these people to actually stay online to learn our, you know, our content. But then also accessibility in terms of language and even the mode of teaching. It's something that we also learned. For example, the women entrepreneurs that we were targeting in Dar es Salaam, the language that we were using had to change when we started targeting women in Korogwe. So even, like, for example, if you look at our learning resources on YouTube, the first digital marketing content that we produced and the second one are totally different, but it's all in the spirit of taking into consideration the different lingo that, you know, women entrepreneurs use, the kind of teaching that they would be accustomed to, you know, as if it's so much text as opposed to visuals or visuals as opposed to text. So all those were like learning curves that we had to adopt to make sure that we make sure that the content is accessible, but, you know, they get to learn. So the first aspect was affordability, human-centered design, co-designing, and then affordability, and then accessibility. So I would benchmark that on three things. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Kennedy, and the reason I didn't put you last for no reason, but I'm hearing Carol mentioned skills, right? And Carol talked about digital skills, and we've talked about this throughout the morning. In the morning session, we talked about it, and all of our speakers today also mentioned it. You've been able to leverage really well what IWTz does, and it's incredible to be able to enhance your business market operations, really. And so, what kind of strategies did you use? And, you know, we want to learn. There's a lot of young people in the room today who really want to learn. So, what do you see, kind of the specific strategies or technologies that have been particularly effective in driving the growth for IWTz, and which other companies sitting in this room can now take on board and say, okay, this is what we could do?
Yeah, so IWTz was born during a digital transformation age. We are just 6 years old company. So we are partly lucky to be born within that time frame. So we had much less options, really, than to make sure that we tap into the opportunities that are available and to digitize and to be able to reach to our customers and partners through means that are probably more affordable and more accessible to us. So we built everything from the scratch in terms of how we started, how we presented ourselves, how we positioned ourselves, making sure that we are out there and we can be seen. Now, the issue is for organizations and small companies that have not tapped into the potential of digital transformation that is happening across board, they are at the risk of being left out, essentially. My colleagues always say that it's just one misstep that can make a difference and make sure that a company is ahead, and the rest are in the back end. And what I can confidently say is that if you are a small company, an organization, or even in the public sector institutions, one of the things that they must really think about is how to digitize, because as data indicates, there are over 30 million internet users in Tanzania, and that number is steadily growing. And it means every other services that is happening is going to be happening on digital. And I'll make a reflection, which is very simple, and for people to remember. 10 years ago, lots of people had to queue to buy token for Luku or Umeme. Yeah? They had to queue maybe 50 and wait for hours to get such services. But today, it's happening in your mobile. You don't have to do that. 3 years ago, there was a glitch in the system, and there was massive crowds at offices where people would rather buy the token. So it seems, in my view, that all sectors are impacted by the transformation that is happening. And overall, it's how every sector, regardless of where you are an NGO, you're a startup, you are a corporate company, you really need to think how we can integrate technologies in your operations so that you can scale.
Thank you. And you've been able to weather this storm, and you've been able to partner with other organizations to help them digitize as well. So I'm curious, you were a startup. Are you still a startup?
Yeah.
You're still a startup, okay.
Yeah. Tesla is still a startup, so.
I'm just checking. But you've leveraged partnerships, Kennedy, in a really interesting way. I feel as IWTz2024. So what kind of, in your view, how can policy reforms or public-private partnerships, and you've been part of these, like I said, mitigate challenges and foster a more conducive environment for digital economy? What are you doing as IWTz2024 to do that, and how are you doing it?
So I'll start from a broader picture before narrowing it down. I think my personal interpretation of a digital economy is that an economy of creators and innovators that will drive consumption. So for a digital economy to really thrive, creators and innovators must be allowed to create and innovate. Now, that's a process. Innovation and creation is a process, and it's a process which often involves failing. The more you let people create, the more they fail, and they come back and they innovate again, and they fail, and the success. That's a process, often. So one of the overall feedback that I'll give is that the environment first must really be, especially policy and legal frameworks that we have in our country, which I think they're fantastic. But I think the question they would rather respond to in particular is, when I walk in and I want to register my innovation or my creation, it's more of what can we do to make you succeed. It's not more of what can we do to regulate you, to make sure that you comply, etc. Compliance is very important part, but it's more, what can we do for you so that you can succeed? And I think that's a missing component. So if you ask us how we navigated through that to build a partnership and collaborations, especially in the private and development sector, is that we always think ahead, and we preempt problems and making sure that we can provide solutions. So even the way we speak and partner with our clients and partners in the development and private sector is that we really think from, like Carol said, human-centered design. We think from their shoes, not our shoes. We think from outside in rather than inside out. And by doing so, we have been able to build very sustainable collaborations, making sure that we address their discrete needs, making sure that the solutions we provide really are solutions that can work and they can scale. So we go above and beyond, making sure that we really, really look into the issues that they're facing and making sure that we can address them effectively.
And as a growing startup, what are your 3 on your wish list?
Sitting?
What's on Kennedy's wish list? If you could have anything for this ecosystem, what do you want, Kennedy?
So I'll say a few things. I think the number one is that I hope that the ecosystem can grow to be more supportive, and this is a call for private sector and every other sector that is involved.
Can you define support? That's beyond finance, right? Financial support is great, but are you looking beyond financial support?
Yes, there could be technical support, and you know, for you to build solution in any technological solutions, you need a lot of integration, and some integrations will require a lot of resources. So sometimes you'd rather have in-kind support and such type of you know, support from the ecosystem. And I think some of them are here, and they can hear what I'm trying to say, that we need a lot of support, right from the private sector, banking sector, telecommunication sector, etc., even development sector. But I think the second part, which I already started indicating, is that we really need to build an ecosystem in an environment that is supportive from a public perspective. How do we stimulate innovation in the digital economy through public-driven initiatives? That is already happening to a large extent, but how do we make sure that that is accelerated and can attain certain results? So I think in the process of policy making and this frameworks formulation, I think we really need to think of how to, we do not over-regulate the ecosystem and make sure that we support it. And the first goal being, how can we make you succeed? How can we make this successful? Because M-Pesa today is very successful. If it was our product in Tanzania, we would have been very proud of it, right? We have solutions. No, it kind of started in Kenya, right? That's admission. So if Flutterwave started in Tanzania and it's become an African unicorn, we would have been very proud, not just from a private perspective, but from a public perspective as well. So the solutions must always be, how can we make this succeed? And we've seen a lot of innovations stifled by the reaction and over-regulation sometimes, especially from the public sector's perspective. So that's number two. And I think number three is how we can upskill the young people, especially young people, to thrive in the digital economy. That is being vaguely discussed often, but there's massive skill mismatch. And
how are you doing it at Serengeti Bytes? Let's get down to that.
Sorry?
You're hiring all the time. Yeah. How are you doing it?
It's very difficult.
What's your secret?
Confession is that it's very difficult. We've had that conversation. I think I was having that conversation with someone yesterday. The most difficult part of startup operations is to be able to attract the best talent and retain them. Yeah. Why? Because there are very few, and they'll grow very rapidly and leave, you know? So because you cannot afford them at some point. And this is to say we need to upskill the especially people who are involved in the ecosystem and in the innovation sector, such that you have an outflow of skills. People, and it's not about how many people, like the job creation, rather than there are so many people with skills, but there are no jobs. Because I think these are things that are very connected and related. So skills mismatch and upskilling the population, and especially the youth population, is very important. So we are struggling with talent acquisition and retention, but I think that's something that can be addressed at all levels, private sector, public sector, and I think development sector as well.
Thank you, Kennedy, and Carol and Jose Luis. I will open up the floor for questions. We will keep the questions to, the question must be under 60 seconds when you ask it. Paul, this is not a multiple choice question. So can we get a mic here, please, for the gentleman with the glasses, and then for the gentleman behind him in the gray shirt? Your question must be under 60 seconds. And then we will have a mic for the young lady up front. And we'll give her 120 seconds for her question. So let us know who you are, what you do, or where you're from, and your question and who it's for. Yeah?
Yes, my name is Joseph Cleveland, and I'm a consultant from the Large Institute. My question is directed to Mr. Kennedy. What are the strategies do you use to retain the best talent in your company? Thank you.
Yeah, that's for you. You can take
So, two things. Equipment, give them all the necessary amenities they need. The second part is paying them well. Now, I cannot pay them just as much as Vodacom can. So I've had a situation in 2020 or 2021 where I took 3 talents from university. They were very good, trained them extensively, given them everything, and then they were snatched by by another startup which could actually afford them. So while you can attract people and you can pay them maybe modestly, you cannot always meet their expectations. So I think the strategy is to always support them, train them, support them to grow, and if they want to continue staying with you or working with you, it's fine, but you cannot always keep the best talents in your company. It doesn't work even in large corporations. That's the truth. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kennedy. Paul?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Bomani. I'm in the tech space with a company called IDTech. I have 2 questions. Hopefully that's 120 seconds. So I'll try to be quick. The first one is to this panel, and hopefully Mashaka from Ministry of ICT is still here. It's around the Jamii number and the new policy that's been enacted. From a data sharing point of view, I find that Tanzania is a bit restrictive. Data protection is really key. The new Data Protection Act should be applauded. But at the same time, through experience, it's been very hard for fintechs and the like to be able to verify customers via API, because there's a lot of loopholes that they have to jump through. So how do we kind of balance that so that there's more access as well as protection in the market? So that's the first one. And then the second one is, again, to the panelists and the previous speakers and the team from Vodacom. I'm sure you're very tired of people always talking about tariffs. But this last weekend, I was at a conference and it was pointed out that about 90% of transactions are still in cash. So I think mobile payments or digital payments still have a tariff issue. I'm not going to talk about reducing the cost so it's more affordable, but from a purely econometrics point of view, if it costs 10% to, 1,000 shillings to send 10,000 to someone, you're not going to drive digital payments. So in terms of generating data that can be used to build other products, digitizing the economy, I think that is something that needs to be looked at, less from a affordability point of view, but from a macroeconomics point of view. How much economic dividend will they be by shifting that 90% to 80 or 70% of all payments being digital?
So I heard a question first, and then I had a comment. Is that correct?
Well, the second one is how do we shift? Because I know one of the arguments might be the cost of doing digital transactions. I know we have tips.
So what you'd
that's
like
coming
to see,
into play.
what I'm hearing is Paul would like to see a shift in tariffs. Thank you, Paul, for just speaking from your heart and what's in all our hearts, what we'd like to see. Your first question, was that directed to anyone in particular?
Maybe Jose Luis from experience with the EU and GDPR, and if I can direct it to Ministry of ICT, if Mashaka is around, I'd also like to hear him chime in as well.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I'm not an expert on GDPR. Let me put a disclaimer because it's a very long regulation. But what I will say is that first, as you rightly said, we have to commend the ministry first of having this act and having this law in place, because I think we have to understand behind the law what was the purpose, right? There was a lot already of data sharing that was not being protected, that was not being regulated, and therefore a lot of people were compromised, right? So I think the idea is first to really ensure that people understand what does it mean and what is the value of data. What are you sharing? What kind of information are you sharing? Are you sharing financial information? Are you sharing physical information? Or are you just sharing, you know, my favorite color is red? You know, there's different levels as to what data you're sharing, and I think that's important that the government here has understood this and has taken that on board. Now, in terms of what comes next, right, I think the government has understood that they need to engage with the private sector, and particularly with the fintech and fintech ecosystem. Through our program in D4T, we're actually working together with the PDP Commission. We're working to them to understand how to raise awareness correctly, particularly from the experience of Europe, and particularly how to ensure that it's really understood from a layman's perspective, but also to be able to understand how are you complying with the law, right? How are you ensuring that you understand the law itself? And if there is loopholes, as you said, and if there is hurdles that are blocking you to create business, that needs to be shared, right? And I think that's sort of the platform that we are sort of creating through PESATech, our accelerator specifically for fintechs like yourself, and of course through our D4T program, where we're really trying to engage with the community and to understand those hurdles, so at least we can pass that message to the ministry through our dialogue, and of course share our experience from there. In terms of what's next and how much is onboarded, I'm sure Director Mashaka can explain and expand a bit further.
Yeah, as I explained, I think I just mentioned the documents which I just mentioned them here are only 7 in total, and we have 7 on board which they haven't been out yet. One of them is AI and other stuff, but one of the crucial document which is we will also release it as a draft for you guys to go through it, is innovation framework. And with this, we look forward into how we are going to cooperate with these startups and innovators, including the fintech and everyone of it. How are we going to bring them on board? Because one of the challenges we have right now, we were missing the coordination of all these startups, all of them. We have fantastic ideas here. We have a motto, we say like, we have innovators, we need to identify them. Once we identify them, how do we actually protect their ideas? Once you protect, how do you enhance, you know, like sustainability and all those sorts? So on our side as well, currently, we are building National ICT Innovation Portal. This portal actually comes along to register all these ICT innovators. You know, anything you innovate related to ICT or as ICT as an enabler, you actually get connected into it. You pose your challenges. What do you have? You know, so in terms of data sharing, how do we connect that with the aspect of a Jamii number? Through this platform, we are going to have a module specific for innovators, specific for that, and how are they going to utilize the data into it. You can imagine we have gone as far as, at the university right now, students are looking for research topics. But we have a triplets right now, a triplets model. We have innovators on one side, we have a researcher on the other angle, and we have industry on this side. So this is how, when you connect these three, then you can have the best implementation of the digital economy as far as innovation is concerned. So as a ministry, we'll sit in the middle to make sure we facilitate that. If you need any kind of requirements through ICTC, through that platform as well, you guys can register and we can help you. How to access data. If it's a fintech, you want to promote your solutions, I said it here. We have Jamii number, Jamii Malipo, which is actually the digital payment part of it. So all the fintechs can actually bump into it. And we are working very close with the Bank of Tanzania, BOT. So I think this is fantastic. The environment is there. Just come to the ministry, we will support you. We just want to coordinate. The missing part was the coordination. Everyone is doing on his own. Even the donors, they are also funding. Sometimes I even complain to them, like they are funding people, but we don't know. There are so many good initiatives that are going on in the country that we need to promote them, but we also don't know. That's why we are now preparing AI strategy for the country. But for the strategy to complete, there are so many AI initiatives around. So we need to conduct a little research on it. So it's just a matter of coordination which was missing. Now the ministry has sat on its chair, so please come forward. We will support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashaka. And what I also heard is that the Jameen number is going to make it easier for fintech solutions to be able to verify customers. Is that?
Yes, and just to add on top of that, we have an eKYC. I've been given 20 seconds. We are now doing with the BOT. We had a meeting with Vodacom, Tigo. We are developing a system called eKYC. How do we authenticate a customer electronically through digital platforms? So we have authentication, Jameen number authentication platform. We are now dealing with FIU and BOT on how now the eKYC can be used into all these financial institutions, financial services. So fintech are of our priority to support them. So please just come forward. Let's share ideas because we are all young. You know, in the ICT, you can't do it on your own in isolation. So let's share ideas, come to us, and we drive this country together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mashaka. Mr. Anna Farah, Head of Corporate Affairs and Voda Foundation.
Thank you, CR. I have two questions, but I'll try and keep them within 60 seconds. So my first question is to Jose Luis in regards to, you mentioned that putting humans at the center of regulations. How are we building that capacity within government? Because what we're seeing, particularly for private sector, yes, we are being involved, but by the time we see those draft regulations or draft guidelines, you're given a very short timeline. That's number one. Number two, it's already a decision has been made. While actually consumers sit on our side, and we probably have insights on the behaviors of those consumers. So that's question to you. My other question, or rather a comment, and this is me wearing my matchmaker hat. You talked about a talent pool, meaning that you go to university, you capacitate them, but this other side, you lose them very fast because as a startup, you cannot retain them. Have you ever thought as one of the strategies or things that you could do, partner with the likes of Niadiri or any other talent pool where actually you feed into that pipeline and it becomes a business, or diversifying your business where you become a talent pool or a center of excellence in that regard? Thank you. No, two questions. Thank you very much. Carol has no question.
Jose Luis.
For the question, it's a difficult one to answer on behalf of the government, because I think it's really their mandate to truly ensure that it's human-centric. But I think it's important to understand that the government has to work with who they trust and who has real value to bring on the table. A lot of the times, and I can speak maybe this on behalf of the government, people come to complain, but don't come with solutions, right? We need to change this. It's not about complaining. If you have data, if you have information, if you have experience, like the European Union does, you share it with the ministry. And I'm telling you this from experience. The government has now been very open in terms of receiving that information, being self-critical, but I think it's also about them really nitpicking whether your solution is valuable to them or not. And if you don't think, of course, if they don't think it is, that's up to them to decide, right? But I think it's important to remember that there has to be value around the solutions that you're building. In terms of the human-centric aspect, we always have to come from experience, whether it's not only in Europe, but even in Africa, right? We have so many examples from the big countries like Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa that we can share. And of course, Vodacom, I'm sure, has a network that can build from that and be able to share with the ministry. The one thing I will say that I think is important to recognize, I think the government should recognize, is the value of startups and the value of innovators on the ground. Because I think they usually tend to listen to the big players like European Union, Vodacom, Tigo, the likes, because there's a lot of money behind, of course, building the solution in the end. But I think the problems still start from the ground, right? And I think we are trying to help facilitate a pool of, let's say, opinions that we can bring them together and tackle it together with the government. And I think this is something that is still a work in progress, but I think there's still room for growth in that area.
Thank you, Jose Luis. Meshach, do you want to respond in any way to that? You don't, no pressure, you don't have to.
Actually, there are things which we do as a government. Number one, stakeholders engagement is of priority. There is nothing that we can release without engaging stakeholders. But there are stages and levels on how we can do that. If you establish like a policy, first of all, you need to ask, like, do we really need a policy? So we have to go around and ask everybody. But once you have the policy, you have a strategy, then maybe you are looking for working tools, you know, like these frameworks that I mentioned here. We normally go with a draft, and then we distribute it to all stakeholders, public sectors and private sectors. For example, with these ones, we have done it with the public sector, and we have already conducted a physical meeting with public sector in Dodoma, and we have done it this Monday in Dar es Salaam with the public sector. With the private sector and civil associations and all other groups, we have arranged it next week. And the good thing is the European Union are also helping to coordinate that meeting with the private sector to walk through all these 5 documents. Just to go through there, we present it, you guys give us the comments you have and all those sorts. So that's very key. So once we receive all those comments, and then the one that we have received through written documents, then through written letters or anything, then we can compile them and we release final documents. That's how we do it. So there is no document that we're going to release without engaging stakeholders. The question is when and where and how fast we should be. Maybe that's something we should take as a government. We will take that on board to improve and to make sure we laid it out earlier.
So maybe involving private sector and other stakeholders in the early formation stage, right? As opposed to once you have a printed document, when you're thinking about it, bring them onto the table and say, look, let's craft this together. Because ultimately, we're all then custodians of these documents, because we implement them or we have to follow the rules in some way. So I'm hoping you can take that back to the ministry, that you start earlier. And when you're even thinking about it, at that Monday morning meeting, you say, you know what, before we even write and open up the computer, let's call Voda. And Zoana's already committed to being there. So bring, and with your customer base, and I'm not just talking about Vodacom, but just in general, private sector, the views that they could bring to the table are sometimes unfortunate. And you said this, Jose Luis said this, sometimes we're not talking to you because we don't know how to. But private sector talks to us all the time. So they could then be the voice that also comes to you and says, hey, we know what people are thinking. So it would be great if, next year, Innovation Week, you're standing here talking about how us, the people, were part of that process from day one. We'd love that. Thank you. So, I think you can stay there for now. Don't need to move. And I'd like to invite the man of the hour, Mr. Joseph Manirakiza. He's been an architect the last 2 days, to come and give us some closing remarks. Thank you to the panelists. You stay right there. Don't move. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the commitments. Joe, you get like 5 minutes, Joe. You need 20 or 15?
No, I'm kidding. Good evening, everybody. I think I wasn't tired, yes, which we could actually still continue talking, right? But the reason why we're actually discussing when we're talking about Innovation Week with Serengeti Bar is to hold this session is there's quite a lot which is happening. I think you also heard about it. And there's quite a lot that needs to be discussed because we are all still learning. Digital is still new to all of us. And I agree with what Catherine said actually about the government engaging much earlier. There's one recommendation that was given about upskilling. I think that's what Kennedy keeps on talking about, but he insists on the young people. I'm always actually telling people that we should upscale if the old people, because fine, we are they say we are. Young people are the majority, but who is making the laws of this country? The old ones. Do they know digital really? Because it's totally, they were born before computer, they're BBCs. So how are we going to make regulations and framework regarding digital something that you are not necessarily, I'm not saying you don't know much. I mean, we are lucky to have the likes of Mashaka in office, but how many Mashakas are in there? Yeah, so I think we need to figure out how we also need to engage policymakers who are in office to be able to kind of make laws that they are also aware of. Because at the end of the day, when something is made and it doesn't work, we are the ones who suffer. And you know how long changing a policy in Tanzania takes. So it's better we get it right from the word go before we kind of start thinking about how to change it if it's not working. So that's number one. I think upskilling everybody, not just the young people. Number two, the reason why we decided to start with demonstrating or showcasing what is possible was exactly to have this kind of discussion, because what we're trying to show is like there are actually a number of formidable businesses that can actually be scaled that build on digital. So that's why we started with those rapid fire kind of presentations to show what's possible in the startup ecosystem, what's possible in sport. Thank you, Iman, for reaching out. He called yesterday evening. I was like, yeah, you can come, it's fine. What's possible in the NGO sector. So we wanted to start with what is possible, get to hear from the expert. Thanks a lot, Philip. I mean, I know getting 2 hours of your time is not cheap, right? So thanks for being here. Yeah, and then discuss like what else needs to be done. So that's why we actually devote resources to be able to convene these kind of discussions, so you can actually be able to learn and be able to have policies that actually can work. Number three, we have heard from the government. I have to applaud the ministry. I mean, your ministry, you are doing quite a lot. I mean, working on 7 policies and frameworks in 1 year is not easy. It's a beginning, it's the start. I believe we can do much more. And we would like to see more ministries getting engaged, because as people said, ICT is not just for the ICT ministry. Right now, everything is driven by digital. So let's see how we can engage even more and how you can actually play a strategic role within the government to be able to engage at this level. Yeah, so right now, maybe I just had to mention that Nigeria and Simplify actually 2 of our startups we are supporting. So we saw the potential. Now we wanted you to see the potential which is out there, that so people can be able to support more. And let's focus more on, I like the word you used facilitation. Sometimes I get, the private sector, whenever they hear the word regulations coming from the government, they get scared, because we know what regulate means when the government is actually talking. So it's a good thing that we start talking about facilitation, because as Kennedy put it, I think we should always think about how do we make those people succeed, rather than how do we stop them in the name of coordination, right? So that's why we have to kind of have this kind of a conversation. Okay, these policies, yes, it's really needed. We need a law, but how can we make that this law is going to facilitate rather than hinder people from innovating? So after having said that, guys, thank you very much for these 2.5 hours. I think they were very impactful. We have a lot of ideas that we can actually work on. I think we have noted that there's quite a number of areas we still need to work on. So asanteni sana, we're still here tomorrow. We have a policy discussion on Friday, which is still going to touch on so many of these things, focusing around on startups. So I hope to continue seeing you around. So asanteni sana.
I promise you, it wasn't like we sent a note out, wear all the dark colors you have in your closet. Okay, on 3, you need, when I say Ndizi, you have to like bring it, okay? So I'm going to count to 3 and you're going to say Ndizi. 1, 2, 3. It makes it sound.
No, just have one. You guys smile. Don't say anything. Just smile.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you so much, everyone on the panel and our speakers. A couple of announcements before you head out the door. Tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., UN Women is running a session around how to empower more women in the digital world. Fungo and the British High Commission have a session from 2 to 4 in this room tomorrow, from research to commercialization, how to commercialize your research. And tomorrow morning, UNCDF have a session, The Path to Digital Transformation, Insights from the Past Year, 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Have a great evening, get home safe, and see you tomorrow morning.